Fuck yeah, Spider-Man's on TV. Aloha nerds, and welcome back to TheSalawag's Why It's Great. I'm your host, TheSalawag, and on this show I discuss the filmmaking techniques and storytelling choices that make my favorite films great. And today I'm talking about Spider-Man. Thank you for joining me on the floor of my bedroom in my parents' house, where I live rent-free, because I'm a broke-ass scrub. And I'm single and ready to mingle, but not ready to pick up the tab. I want to talk about Spider-Man is because it's my favorite superhero. You might notice some Spider-Man stuff here. I'm not really showing you all of it because I'm lazy. But just I grew up on the '90s cartoon. I thought that was the Bible to me. When the movie came out, I was so dumb. I thought the movie was based off the cartoon. But the movie was still very much in line with the cartoon. That's why Spider-Man 2002, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Toby Macguire, Kirsten Dunst, and J. Jonah Jameson. That's why I really loved it just off the bat, because I thought, man, it's totally consistent with the '90s cartoon. With the exception of the '90s cartoon, Spider-Man was in college, and he had a bit more spine, a little bit more spine. And definitely I feel like he had more of that New York attitude that you would expect from a Spider-Man from New York, running around New York City. But that was fine. I thought, the way the movie is set up, you're seeing Tobey Maguire in high school being picked on, as he was both in the cartoon, and I would later, when I got a gift set of the movie, the collector's gift set, it came with the Spider-Man first appearance in Amazing Fantasy number 15. And I read that thing. I was like, oh, this is where Spider-Man came from. That was really fascinating to me to see that specifically, in talking about so many nerds complain about, and they're right to, faithfulness to the comic. You can have a movie like Silence of the Lambs or The Shining that maybe mostly at least follow the story that was written down, but the director takes turns where they want. But when it comes to comic book movies, for some reason it's like, oh, it's just, crap that you wipe your ass with after your kid's done reading it. That's what most people think of comic books, and sometimes they're right. But there's a reason certain characters last so long through time, and that's because they're written so well, and the art is so good that readers just can't get enough of it. And so when it comes to comic book movies, so many times faithfulness is just thrown out the window, because real filmmaker men who get laid do not read comic books. They watch movies with real people in them, where real emotions are felt. Like in Sunset Boulevard, when you're sitting there watching a monkey get buried like he's some kind of Egyptian god. That's real fucking emotion, man. That's real fucking emotion. So that's what you're taught when you go to film school and you watch movies. You learn to see movies in a very scrutinizing, sadistic, high art appraising kind of way. And blockbusters, they're just silly popcorn for people to consume. Yeah, and I'm one of those people, so I went to fucking film school and I saw all that. But when it came to faithfulness to the comic, I thought, man, Spider-Man 2002 both had great storytelling and great application of technique. In art school you learn about filmmaking technique. All of that's in there. Technique, personality, intention, meaning, all the things that you want in a movie, they're there. The the theme of great power versus and responsibility that's in the movie. But when I read that comic that came out of the gift set, I was really amazed and surprised at how faithful, especially the first half of Spider-Man was. You know, that first half of the movie, you see Peter's picked on by all of his peers, even some adults don't even care too much about him. But his aunt and uncle who take care of him, they love him. They think the world of him. And so you got a very quiet kid because he doesn't know how to act, because at home he's appreciated, but out in the world he's just some weird thing. And that's very much exactly how Stan Lee and Steve Ditko presented Spider-Man, the Peter Parker character, in Amazing Fantasy number 15. And why is it Amazing Fantasy? Why do I keep saying it? That's because Spider-Man was never introduced initially in his own comic book. You know, Stan Lee tells the story himself so many times in many interviews, but you know, he wanted to introduce Spider-Man as his own title, but his editor wouldn't do it because people don't like spiders. So there was this book called Amazing Fantasy, that they were doing for about a year, and it wasn't doing so well. It was about strange adventures out in the world, and since they were closing out with their final comic and no one cared, Stan Lee decided to do the Spider-Man story that he'd been wanting to tell, and that his wife, rest in peace, Joan Lee, that his wife encouraged him, hey, just get it out there, do Spider-Man. You know, you've been talking about it all the time, just do it. You know, so without that moment, you know, we don't have Spider-Man. So Stan Lee puts in the story of this kid who's picked on by his peers, but he's fascinated with science. He really enjoys science. And he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and he learns his powers and sort of instinctively as life throws things at him. And he sees an ad in the paper for, hey, colorful characters wanted for a wrestling ring, you know, a televised wrestling ring. And he's like, ooh, well, I have this cool spider power, I'll just dress up like a Spider-Man kind of guy and I'll go win some money. And sure enough, he goes to the wrestling ring dressed in a Spider-Man outfit, and he wins. And in the comic, more time actually elapses where he actually gets to be Spider-Man, you know, the entertainer, for a few days. And there's one day where he's closing up after doing a few shows, and this robber steals from the company, the wrestling company that he's working at. And Spider-Man, in this story, doesn't care. The guy runs by, and Spider-Man's just like, yeah, whatever. And the guy's asking him, hey, why didn't you stop that guy? You could have crushed him. And Spider-Man's like, it's not my problem. It's none of my business. What am I supposed to do about that? And, you know, some time passes again, and when Peter comes home, learns that his Uncle Ben's been shot dead. But he overhears police talking about, oh, he's over in this warehouse over there. And Spider-Man swings off to the warehouse. He knows where it is. It's in his neighborhood. And beats up the guy who shot Uncle Ben, and then pulls off. That guy has a mask of his own, and he pulls off his mask, and it's the guy that he let go back in the wrestling building. And so from that point on, we see him even web the guy, and this is the first guy he ever webs up and leaves hanging in that way for the cops. And that's the moment where everything hits Peter, and he realizes, Jesus, I was spending all this time thinking about myself. And he had good reason to think about himself. He wasn't getting respect where he wanted it, but he had the love where he needed it, and he didn't appreciate that. You know, he could have told his uncle, he could have done different things than what he did, but he focused on himself, and he didn't care when something happened right in front of him that he, having his powers, had all the ability to stop. He didn't care about that, and so, because of that, his Uncle Ben died. And yeah, definitely you can put the blame on the robber with the gun, but man, he had an opportunity to stop that robber with the gun. And so, what I love about the movie is that it really faithfully adapts all of that. You know, some time is condensed with it, but essentially that's what the first hour of Spider-Man is about, the movie. It really faithfully adapts all of those moments and even extrapolates them and gives them even more motivation. Because, in a comic book, you can have a panel with some lines that's enough to understand the character. And, yeah, because, you're turning the page. The format is designed to be a page turner. But when it's on film, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, every second of film is literally 24 frames, 24 pictures flashing in front of your eyes. So you want to see a little more motivation. You want to see a little more story go on. And I'm going to get into this more in another video, but essentially the movie does a great job of motivating each moment and building it up in such a way that you really feel the impact of seeing the guy that Peter, when Peter learns that he allowed this guy to go and he shot his uncle. The movie does a great job of really getting to that point of feeling the loss of Uncle Ben. That all the characters feel natural and real. And, yeah. But when it comes to, with great power comes great responsibility, we actually get a motivation for that scene. When Uncle Ben and Aunt May are introduced, and Peter's going to school, Uncle Ben's like, hey, you're going to help me paint the kitchen, right? And Peter's like, yeah. And when, Peter goes off and learns his powers and he comes back, the kitchen's already been painted, and there's even a note from his uncle, the meatloaf's in the fridge, Michelangelo. This is a tiny moment, and you don't have to really care about it, but, the point of the moment is to endear you to the character. The point of the moment is to establish their relationship. And he's saying Michelangelo because earlier he was calling him Michelangelo because they're going to do painting, right? Clever. And so that gives him character, gives him history from a dialogue point of view. And also, because, Peter's been in a fight and he's been not doing his chores, if this good kid who's known for doing the right thing, all of a sudden is not doing his chores and he's getting in fights at school, it's like, what's going on with you, kid? They put that kind of believable moment in the script, in the movie, when Peter's on his way to the wrestling ring. That's the moment where Uncle Ben confronts him like, hey, you're behaving weirdly. And he just, he's not trying to attack him or antagonize him in any kind of way. He really is just asking him, what's going on with you, kid? And it's a very realistic, believable type of scene. But it becomes the gateway to Peter kind of, he doesn't want to talk about himself. He's tired of how he's treated at school, and he doesn't want to talk about it. That's how you are when you're a kid. You don't want to talk about those things with your parental units, And that's where he was. He was just in a bad headspace, and he had an opportunity to make some money and hopefully impress a girl, doing everything the wrong way. And all his uncle is trying to do is ask him a question. And so Peter overreacts and says, like, you don't need to ask me this question. You don't need to ask anything. You're not my father. Stop pretending to be. And that puts all the more weight on their relationship. And it's not done in a cheesy way, and it's not like cut up real tight so you can't see what's going on. You really get to sit and see them act against each other. That even when it's on the close-up of Uncle Ben, we see Peter it's a dirty close-up. A clean close-up is when it's just an actor's face. A dirty close-up is when you're seeing the other actor in the shot, but they're slightly out of focus and sort of in the foreground. And so even when Uncle Ben is talking, you see Toby Macguire sort of react, and his face pushes into the frame, and you can just see that little extra moment. Even choosing to keep little things like that just elevates the emotion more. So you see what's happening in Toby Maguire's head. You see this, he doesn't want to be in this conversation, and that it is that real-life, uncomfortable conversation you don't want to have. But it's the bird and the bees, but it's the bird and the bees of responsibility. And that's where Peter gets the thought of the famous line, with great power comes great responsibility. All of that happens in that one scene. And so when Uncle Ben is discovered dead, and I actually talk about the storytelling through performance in a different video, so if you want to check that out, I actually talk about this scene. But when that moment happens, and it was Cliff Roberts who plays Uncle Ben, it was his idea to still be a little bit alive, to have that last eye-to-eye contact with Peter. All of that stuff, the building up of the shots and the dialogue and all the scenes really creates a fluid concept with the character that's more than just, oh, I love you and I bought you a gift. It's really, this guy was trying to teach you, and you being the sort of rudderless ship of a teenager didn't want to listen, didn't want to follow good advice. And so all of that just creates a greater impact when Peter witnesses Uncle Ben die. And that sort of perfect extrapolation, that perfect sort of cinematic type of storytelling really elevates this kind of movie, where you've stayed true to the comic and all of the events that happened, but you just filled them out and built them in a way that really sustained a movie and sustained your emotion, that when Peter cries, you too, like, stop fucking crying, dude. I don't want to cry too if you're crying. Fucking crybaby, and all of that just builds the emotion up to you and makes the emotion effective. So faithfulness to the comic, faithfulness to the source material, and also very excellent storytelling choices and in both the script, casting, and directing of the actors. Again, see the storytelling through performance video for that stuff. All of that is part of what makes Spider-Man great. So next, I think I'm talking about blocking and framing. But for now, faithfulness to the comic. That's why Spider-Man 2002, directed by Sam Raimi, is great. Thank you for watching. More crap to come. Yay! More crap!